All right, this is a quiz on the 4 tool cultures we've been learning about, and I'd like you to pause on each of them, answer your question at least in your head, if not on paper, and then I'll go through the answers. So I'm going to go through them quite quick. You'll need to pause. All right, question number 1. A, name this tool culture, and B, which 2 features of it really enabled you to identify its culture. Question number 2, name the tool culture seen here, and B, estimate the time period in which this tool culture arose. You probably can't do that off the top of your head, but if you have some reasonable guess, give it a go. Question 3, name this tool culture and also name the hominin to which it belonged. Question 4, name the hominin responsible for this tool culture and also describe the grip that had to be used with this tool. 5, name this tool culture and name the tool. What is that tool called? Question 6, what materials did early Homo sapiens use to produce upper Paleolithic tools? Give me some of those materials. Right, I think that's it. Oh no, one more. Question 7, which hominins were involved in developing this tool culture, and how did tool use shift over this period? So this period was extremely long, and something major occurred throughout this period. All right. Question number 1, this tool culture would be Acheulean, and you can tell that because of the quite obvious use of bifacial chipping. So they've chipped away at the circumference of this tool and then turned it over and chipped away at the other side, so that when you turn it on its side, it's got this sharp edge down the middle there. And yeah, that's called bifacial chipping, 2 faces chipped to make a sharp edge. And it's got that really characteristic teardrop shape. So Acheulean tools were really classically standard designed to look the same, pretty much. And they were, big, fat, kind of bulbous teardrops. So I've got some extra information here that I've got off Pathways, and I'm just going to read it out. These lower Paleolithic or early Stone Age tools were slightly more advanced than older ones, with a typical teardrop shape, carefully crafted with a slight bulge on each broad surface called a biface. They differ markedly from earlier pebble tools in that there appears to be a standard design, and the manufacture of these tools requires many more blows to remove flakes. This standard design represents the ability of its maker to be able to plan or foresee what that stone will become. So when we think about that and what inferences that makes about biological evolution, we can expect that the maker of this tool had to have had a relatively developed frontal lobe, which is responsible for abstract and logical thought, in order to plan for a tool that hadn't been designed or created yet, and then follow through the steps to do so. They were first widely used by Homo erectus as a hand axe for hunting. This represents a shift from the scavenger lifestyle of Homo habilis and early Ergaster and erectus to the hunter-gatherer lifestyle of later hominins. It was the dominant technology for the vast majority of human history, and more than 1 million years ago it was the Acheulean tool users, namely Homo erectus, who left Africa to first successfully colonize Europe and Asia. So yeah, fun facts. All right, number 2. This tool culture would be Oldowan, and you can tell that by the clue there, handyman, we know as Homo habilis. Older Moldiundi's hens, habilis, links with Oldowan tool culture, the very first tool culture. You can also see in the picture that he's using a river-worn pebble and bashing it with a hammerstone to create kind of a very rudimentary sharp core and some flakes there on the ground as well. The estimated time period for this tool culture was about 2.6 to 1.7-ish million years ago. Using a stone to produce flakes from another stone and then using them to cut something involves a chain of events that was probably too complex for early hominins to string together in a single flash of inspiration. It's far more likely that it proceeded in stages, the early tools being an unintended result of unrelated processes such as cracking fruits. In other words, what they're saying there is that Homo habilis probably didn't intend to make tools, but accidentally made a tool while doing something else, like cracking fruits with it, and then thought, oh, this is handy, and went on to use that tool, and then eventually they would learn to make the tools not by design, but by mimicking older individuals. So not thinking ahead and planning for something, but going, that was a good idea. Maybe I'll just copy that. And that allowed us to get, greater tools, greater food and nutrient intakes, encephalization, and then the ability to actually create and produce tools after that. But yeah, it would have proceeded in stages and taken a long time. Question number 3, name the tool culture. This would be Upper Paleolithic tools. So there is, I'm torn between Mousterian and Upper Paleolithic here. It looks like quite a standardized, predictable stone like flint. And with Upper Paleolithic tools, we often see more of a proliferation of materials, but it could just be showing us one specific type of tool here, so spearheads. Neanderthals also used spearheads and created kind of rudimentary composite tools, but I think I'm about to talk about it later. They probably copied these technologies off sapiens that were living in their areas, and rather than coming up with the technology itself. The reason I think this is Upper Paleolithic culture is the bottom left picture shows a tool that I recognize as being created with what I believe to be punch blade. So a punch blade, if you look it up, is pushing a hammer down onto the top of a tool and kind of pulling off large, predictable columns of material. More sophisticated tool manufacturing techniques like the punch blade, they emerged about 45,000 years ago, so that was Homo sapiens, and Homo sapiens took that technology with them to Europe. And that's probably part of the reason, at least partially responsible for the disappearance of Neanderthals, so their extreme technologies. It also looks like a good, 100 to 200 chips off some of these tools, and that's really extensive planning and investment in tools. So I'm going to say Upper Paleolithic, but I could be wrong. This here looks like Levallois technique. So when we talked about Neanderthals, they chip away at one side of a tool to make kind of a tortoise shell shape and then pop it off with one last blow that has a nice sharp back. So yeah, could be one or the other, but those are my justifications. This one here is classically an Oldowan tool. You can see it's a river-worn pebble bashed about 5 to 10 times, so not very much. This would have been by a handyman, aka Homo habilis, and it would have required a power grip. So the precision grip and the dexterity of the hands were still developing. So yeah, this would have just been a bash and smash tool. Question 5, name the tool culture. This is an Acheulean tool, and we call this tool a hand axe. So you see that classic teardrop shape. It's quite bulbous, and yeah, they would have used it with a power grip to smash things. So a hand axe was the classic Acheulean tool. Materials that Homo sapiens used to produce early Upper Paleolithic tools would have been things like antler, bone, ivory, wood, shell, a proliferation of different materials from different areas as well, so coastline, mountainous, animal products, all sorts of things, anything that they could shape into something useful. But then I looked up this picture, I saw this picture on another site and it had some interesting information, so I'll read that out. The Chattelperronian industry, tool culture, represents a transition from Middle Paleolithic to Upper Paleolithic tools, commonly associated with early humans. These tools show an even greater sophistication and wider range of materials such as shell or bone body ornaments and a bone flute. I don't know which one of those is a bone flute, maybe the banana one. However, there has been vigorous debate as to whether the Neanderthals actually made these items or if they were stolen from anatomically modern humans. Recent development suggests that they were produced by Neanderthals, but only after modern humans introduced these behaviours, suggesting there was some cultural exchange. So this site says that these tools belong to Mousterian, like very later Mousterian tool culture, but I think I would more classically connect these type of tools to upper Paleolithic tools. You can see a lot of them require really fine craftsmanship and obviously are used for lots of different purposes, and probably a different tool was used to create this tool, like a burin. And yeah, we usually link that to Homo sapiens, or at least the technology of Homo sapiens, whether it was copied by Neanderthals or not. Question 7, which hominin were involved in developing this tool culture? So Acheulean tool culture expanded for such a long period of time and was developed by a number of different hominins. So very rudimentary Acheulean tool culture was created by Ergaster and continued most of that period by Erectus, who developed this tool culture immensely and was later used by the very early kind of primitive Homo sapiens, which were the Homo heidelbergensis. And the major shift was moving from scavenging to hunting. So within the Acheulean period, hominins moved from scavenging meat to being able to hunt their own meat as well. So we went from using hand axes to like sharper scrapers and kind of flying objects and spearheads and things like that within one tool culture. So it was a very long period with a propagation of uses and tool shapes. And that's it. I'm going to upload this slide, and this is an awesome, awesome site that I hope you're using, as I've named it quite a few times, pathways.org. When you go to Pathways, you can go onto the tree. So I've linked that at the very bottom, and it looks like this, but much bigger. This is kind of the branches just for hominins, and they branch off the earlier biological stuff that we learned as well. So you can go onto the site for any topic. I've linked a bunch of these so that you don't have to go back and forth on this slide, so you can go and read and watch videos on all of this stuff if it interests you, might supplement your learning, and that's where I got some of those blurbs that I was just reading out. So yeah, use Pathways, it's awesome, and I hope doing that quiz kind of helped you put some of your knowledge into practice. All right, that's it for the quiz. Come back in a minute and learn about hunting and farming. Ta-ta.